You hear about people buying a business, throwing in an operator, and it being passive. That's the furthest thing from the truth. These partnerships in business are almost more important than your marriage. You're financially tied to these people. They can make or break your life. It's crazy how much more relationships develop when you actually act like a human and not this perfect robot. I don't feel like I'm any better than them. I feel just as lost as I did before I bought this business. I'm still the same person. I still have anxiety. I still struggle with a lot of things. Buying a business, you feel like that gets you to the finish line, actually gets you to the starting line.
Welcome back to the Hybrid Real Estate Professional Podcast, the show where we explore how people are building freedom through small business, real estate, and by doing the hard inner work it takes to do both well. Today's guest is my friend Carley Mitus, a former medical sales leader turned 2X business owner turned real estate operations manager at the esteemed Legacy Investment Group in Rochester, Minnesota. Carley started her career in corporate selling capital equipment for GE Healthcare, but after climbing the ladder for 5 years, she realized the top wasn't where she wanted to be. She joined a mastermind called Action Academy, which we're both members of, partnered on a business acquisition, and has since moved across the country to learn real estate from the inside. What I admire most about Carley is how often she's reinvented herself, not out of boredom or burnout, but because she's constantly asking the hard questions. She's someone who doesn't settle. She's built a powerful network of people who are in her corner, and she keeps pushing the envelope of what's possible for her life. Carley, welcome to the show.
Wow, that was really nice. I'm glad this is recorded. I'm going to keep playing that back. Thanks, Aaron.
You bet. With as many things as you've done, I think we should go chronologically here, and maybe you just give a little quick background on who you are and where you came from.
Yeah, of course. I was raised in Kansas City, actually. I was really weird as a kid, and I loved math. And from a very, very young age, I think it was like third grade, I knew that I wanted to be an electrical engineer when I grew up. Why? I don't really know. So I was like, oh, I want to be an electrical engineer. But fast forwarding all the way to senior year, unfortunately, my dad got diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. And a few months after that, it spread to his brain. And a couple of months after that, he passed away. So then I knew I wanted to still be an electrical engineer, but get into the medical industry in some capacity, just so I could help people not have to go through what my dad went through, and selfishly not have to go through what me and my family has had to endure after my dad's passing. So I got a great opportunity at Milwaukee School of Engineering to be an electrical engineer, along with playing Division III soccer. And at MSOE, I quickly realized I talk way too much to be an electrical engineer. Growing up, you hear the term cooties, and I think I even heard the term cooties in college more than I did in elementary school, because there's a stereotype around engineers, and I would say the stereotype's fairly accurate. So with all that being said, I realized I kind of needed to pivot rather quickly. And so I picked up my business administration minor, my physics, and my mathematics minor, and I got a internship for medical sales at GE Healthcare. I ended up interning and taking that full-time position, and then moving to Nashville, where I would be selling CTs, MRIs, X-rays, and that kind of capital equipment to hospitals in Nashville and the greater Tennessee area. Quite frankly, I loved it. It was a really cool job. I got to tell all of my friends that I now lived in Nashville and that I sold medical sales, and my paycheck was great, to be honest. And I think I kind of chased that high for a really long time. I was really good at that job. I was really good at building relationships and adding value to people. And I think a lot of that stemmed from my dad's passing and me knowing that what I was doing was actually helping people rather than me just being a, quote, sleazy sales rep or something like that. And throughout the years, I kept taking promotions and I kept climbing that corporate ladder. And I always thought I was going to be the CEO of GE Healthcare and be this boss-ass businesswoman that was flying around, had a team around her that was doing her emails for her while I was making all the decisions. But then I kind of realized I would always have to be working 50, 60 hours weeks to be making this money. And I realized after 5 years, I had probably taken 5 real days of PTO. And that's because I was in Europe and I couldn't actually work at those same hours. So even though I was at a company that had unlimited PTO, and even though I was at a company that paid me really well, all of a sudden it's like I didn't really get to live my life. So luckily, the Instagram algorithm got me, and I started following a lot of entrepreneurs, and Brian Lubin slash Action Academy was one of them. I probably started following Brian about 2 years ago, so May, June timeframe of 2023. And then I finally slid into Brian's DMs when he released his book in October, November timeframe of 2023 and joined Action Academy fairly quickly after that. I joined Action Academy and I met with Jordan Griffey, who is our small business acquisition ace. So he owns 7 or 8 businesses right now. And I spoke with him and I was like, I think I want to get into real estate, or I really don't know. I know I just need to figure out a way to supplement my income so I can eventually leave medical sales, this corporate world, because I don't think this is for me anymore. And so he told me about buying a business. And so I'm definitely an action taker. If I put my mind to something, I expect to do it, and I expect to do it quickly, and I expect to do it the best. And so when I was actually talking to Brian about joining Action Academy, he said something along the lines of like, just so you know, you're going to be towards the back of the pack because I only owned my own personal home. I didn't have any other real estate or things like that. And so instead of being defeated by that statement, I looked at him and I was like, great, challenge accepted. And you know, I joined Action Academy in November of 2023, and in April of 2024, Alex and I closed on a home inspection business, Alex being my business partner that I met through Action Academy as well. And, I didn't expect it to go that quickly, but it did. And as amazing as it was, there's been a lot of growing pains that I know we'll dive into later on. But so we bought our home inspection business, and back in April, we're running that. I'm also working medical sales. And then, you know, December comes around and all of a sudden I realize that I'm not happy. Whether that be because of the people I surrounded myself with in Nashville, or whether that be because I have been constantly chasing money, I realized deep down to my core, I wasn't a genuinely happy person. And so on New Year's of 2024, so entering 2025, I actually had a 2 hour long therapy session discussing why I wasn't happy with my therapist. And I decided to make another 180 turn of my life and, say, how do I prioritize people in my life, which are the most important, rather than chasing this money, which I had been doing for the last 5 years. So, taking a step back and completely reevaluating my life and reevaluating my core beliefs and things like that really kind of helped me to pivot again to start creating the life that I'm building now. And it's funny, I saw a lot of people in January and February, and then I saw from Action Academy, and then I just saw a lot of them again at in Colorado for our friend's distillery opening, and everybody was like, "You seem so much happier." And that was a big thing for me because it's like, wow, these conscious decisions I've been making have actually turned my life into, wow, people are noticing that I'm so much happier.
It's an extraordinary story, and I think the entirety of it is actually really important context. So, like you said, there's a lot to peel back. I want to start actually at some of the stuff you said at the beginning, which is, you had this really unfortunate situation with your dad that created this really strong why for why you did what you did as a W-2.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't have that strong of a sense of like, I'm doing this and I know it's making an impact about something that I really care about. A lot of people just jump into a corporate job just because they want a paycheck and they want to make money. But I think it's really interesting to hear that it was lucrative and you were able to live the life you wanted to live, but you were also able to do that knowing that you were making an impact that you want to make. And I feel like that's a common thread as you continue to ask yourself all these hard questions throughout your journey. And you called it 180-degree pivots. I don't call it pivots. I call it evolution. I mean, that's just part of growing as a human is continuing to ask those hard questions. Because I swear, like if I rewind the clock 10 years, I'm 35 now, what I cared about at 25 versus what I care about now, what my lifestyle looks like, the types of actions I'm taking, just the way I think is very different. And so if you take any 5-year period, especially, in your 20s and 30s, I feel like that evolution is built into the process of living. And if it's not, frankly, like there's some probably stagnation or, you're kind of deferring that part of maturing and growing up. So I always have admired and applaud how you've approached that evolution. And I would challenge you to think of it more as evolution than you're just changing your mind left and right.
Yeah, I like that phrasing better. Like I said, I'm an electrical engineer. I'm much better with numbers than I am with words. So I'll take your evolution word over my 180 pivot any day. Yeah, I think to your point too. It's so funny when you're in interviews, whether it be for your corporate job or just talking with friends or things like that, it's, hey, what's your 5-year plan? And whenever people ask me that, I honestly laugh because it's like, let's go back 10 years when I was 19. I thought I was going to be an electrical engineer and live in Milwaukee or go back to Kansas or something. 5 years later, I'm in Nashville and I'm in sales. And 5 years later, now my life has evolved again. I think to your point of the evolution is don't stick yourself in one bucket saying like, this is my why. This is going to be my why for forever. This is what I'm meant to do. Your point, I do think we evolve and we do change and we do pivot, and that's totally okay. Like even my why has somewhat changed, right? Like it still revolves around my dad and this hard time in my life, but instead of it being I want to be in medical sales and help people, I still want to help people, don't get me wrong, but also my dad died at the age of he was 47. When you're 17 years old and your parents are 47, you think they're old as crap, right? But all of a sudden, now that I'm 29 and I have friends that are 47 or older, it's like, wow, 47 is really not that old. And so I didn't want to, or now kind of my more why is I don't want to die having any regrets on my life, right? Like if I quit GE and try out this entrepreneurship thing full time, worst case scenario, I fail and I go back to corporate and get another medical sales job, right? So kind of like what Brian Lubin has always said, your worst case scenario is your current day reality. And so kind of living off of that new why of literally YOLO, I don't want to have any regrets. So just trying this new facet of life. And so I challenge people to not be scared of change, but more so embrace it and welcome it because it'll open so many different doors across your life.
Absolutely. And I mean, you embody that when you were talking about when you joined Action Academy, how you kind of almost explained the funnel a little bit. You started seeing it on the Instagram algorithm, then eventually you sent Brian a DM. I'm sure you got on the phone with either him or someone from the team, and you explained, the current situation you're in where you had this desire to make a change or build something for yourself, which I think it's almost like an awakening of sorts when you
Hmm.
have this entrepreneurial itch where I use this phrase, own your upside, right? Like
Yeah.
at an employer, traditional employer, your earnings potential is usually capped in some capacity,
Yep.
unless you're maybe the CEO or a super senior executive. The
Yeah.
amount of value that you add into that business does not equal how much money you make. And
Yeah.
not only money you make, but the impact you can make. You have a ceiling on kind of what you're able to contribute. That's not to
Yep.
knock employers. I'm employed and I appreciate the role that my W-2 job plays in my life. But I think from what you described, you wanted more and you wanted to be able to directly correlate the value you're putting into the value that you're able to engineer for yourself. And so you used, Brian was kind of pushing on you that, hey, you're not coming in with 10 rental properties and a bunch of real estate experience. You don't currently own a small business, kind of some of the, basically, I guess, giving you some of the headwinds you might be fighting. And you use that as determination and power. And boy, did you show, did you show him what that looks like? Because, ultimately you not only very quickly leaned in to the network and built a lot of close relationships, but you formed a partnership and then you closed on not one, but two businesses at the same time with a new business partner.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great example of what you're talking about, which is like embracing change, leaning into it as a means of evolving instead of shying away from it and deferring until it becomes even more painful. So
Yeah.
with that, I mean, I think, can you talk a little bit about how the partnership came together and how the opportunity to buy that business came together too?
Yeah, absolutely. Alex was also in Nashville and also in Action Academy. So we grabbed coffee after I got breakfast with another Action Academy member that day, and then I got coffee with Alex. And honestly, we just kind of hit it off. We had a lot of things in common, a lot of core values in common, and things like that. And to be honest, I am much more of a partner person. Relationships are the number one most important thing in my life, whether it be friendships, family, etc. So having those core values aligned slash also knowing if I wanted to buy a business or if I wanted to get into real estate, I wanted it to do it with people I think it's more fun to celebrate with people, and quite frankly, I think it's a lot easier to, quote, "fail" with someone there that will have your back, knows what you're going through, and quite frankly, also will hold you accountable to not fail, right? Alex and I met, and I think, honestly, it was kind of a loose partnership at first. It was like, "Hey, I wanna buy a business," and he was like, "Yeah, so do I," and I'm like, "Cool, like, let's start tag teaming it and just kinda see what happens, and let's go from there," and so I started reaching out to people on Biz by Sell, started cold calling brokers, starting developing relationships with brokers, things like that. And we did find our home inspection business on Biz by Sell. So there are diamonds in the rough. And honestly, it just kind of developed quickly from there. I built a fairly good relationship with the broker and with the seller, and it was a good business. The seller built a very, very good business where all of his home inspectors were very busy. He had a call center scheduling most of his appointments. So if he wasn't doing home inspections, he got to not do a lot of the back end stuff because of this business that he had developed and the systems that he put into place. And so that's kind of what Alex and I were looking for in a business was how can we maybe implement a operator and then kind of be more hands off and things like that. And definitely had some of our hiccups during it, negotiating price, getting close to deadlines, things like that. But ultimately, it went fairly smooth, I would say. And quite frankly, that was the easy part. And the hard part is running a business. And I'm sure we'll dive deeper into that. But you hear about people buying a business, throwing in an operator, and it being passive. Like, that's the furthest thing from the truth. And you're running a business, you have employees depending on you for a paycheck each week. And so I don't take that responsibility lightly, but it was definitely an adjustment and definitely a lot of growing pains there.
Yeah, I'm actually glad you bifurcated the process of buying the business and then the actual act of running it long term are totally
Mhm.
different things.
Yeah.
They are very challenging in
Yeah.
different ways. Today's episode is brought to you by the Remote Real Estate Academy, the community I launched last year where I personally coach investors and empower them to buy rental properties anywhere in the United States. My business partner Nathan and I have a collective 15 years experience with over 20 cash flowing out of state rental properties. We provide a step-by-step playbook on how you can build your own portfolio and start accessing the life-changing benefits of real estate investing starting today. Go to remoterealestateacademy.com for more info, or better yet, shoot me an email at aaron@aaronamin.com with subject line RREA, and I'll throw in a special bonus for podcast listeners who join the Academy. Now let's get to the show. So 2 things I want to click on. One is you formed this partnership that was also based around a friendship, someone that you would be comfortable, I guess, having a coffee with, having a beer with, whatever it may be. You want there to be chemistry in the relationship, but also someone that you could see being in a long-term partnership with. And I think sometimes people form partnerships to solve a short-term problem or make an immediate pain go away without thinking about 5 years in the future, 10 years in the future. If we still own this business together, are we still going to be aligned?
Yeah.
What if one person wants to have kids, the other person wants to go travel the world, and the lifestyles diverge to a point where you can't operate this the way you originally intended? These are difficult things to think about in real time because you're usually just excited about the opportunity that's right in front of you. But that stuff is important to game out because you said once you get to the phase of actually operating the business, that's where the rubber meets the road of, okay, how are we going to live on a day-to-day basis as the owners of this business? So I think it's really cool that you called that out. And the acquisition part, I imagine based on some of your sales background, your personality, you said you built relationship with the broker. You're probably going through a lot of the motions that they teach in Action Academy. You have to have X number of conversations. You need to put in offers, build these relationships, et cetera. It sounds like you just basically followed the playbook and did a really good job at it. And ultimately, that's what led you to success. It's people are looking for some magic pill, secret sauce, and the secret is doing the work. Or am I missing anything?
Yeah, no, I mean, well, to touch on the partnership thing first, if we're being completely honest, Alex and I moved way too fast into our partnership, right? I think you and your partnership, you've done a phenomenal job of really, quote unquote, dating your partners before marrying them, right? So taking the small steps. Alex and I have been fortunate and almost lucky that our partnership has worked out in the sense of we're just genuinely both good people. We've had a lot of hard conversations. We've had a lot of not fun conversations, whether it be, him saying, Carly, I need you to focus more on here, or me saying, Alex, I need help here. I feel like I'm dropping the ball here, but I need you to help me, etc. And so there were months where I feel like we had hard conversations with each other almost every week, but the fact that we have gotten through that and are now on the other side, I think is huge. And so people joke, but it's these partnerships in business are almost more important than like your marriage in the sense of you're financially tied to these people when they can make or break your life. So you have to be really picky on who you decide to partner with. And people that are listening, don't take that lightly. Truly date people for long periods of time and know that it'll work rather than, to your point, fix that short-term solution of, oh, this person's really good at Excel. Okay, let's partner up and buy business together. Don't do that.
Absolutely. And I also say, and I'm curious if you agree with this, like for better or for worse, if you enter into a partnership with somebody, you more or less have to you have to accept the potential that you might lose that friendship or it might change that friendship forever. Do you
Yeah.
agree?
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I mean, even at my newest gig at Legacy Investment Group, my friendships with Ben and Michaela have changed for forever too. And so you always have to weigh those pros and cons of the people that you decide to work with. But I think a lot of times there are the pros as long as, you align with a lot of the same core values and know that you're going to put in the work and trust that they are also going to put in the work.
Absolutely. And I don't know if you wanted to comment on the acquisition funnel. Is there anything in that process that's magic or special sauce, or do you feel like it's largely showing up every day, putting in the reps and just doing the work?
Yeah, I mean, I was at a coffee shop and I still am at a coffee shop or drinking coffee at 6:30 every morning getting in work, right? It's, kind of like earlier, I had, a coworker calling me 3 times about something and you're like, "Wow, we should have scheduled this at 5 AM because, that's the only time my phone doesn't ring." And so really figuring out when your great deep work brain works, I think is very important. I'm a morning person, and so instead of getting or staying in bed and scrolling on Instagram for a while, it's all right. For a while there, I was getting up at 6 and going to Starbucks and working until 8 and reaching out to brokers and following up with them and continuously showing them that I was serious about buying a business. And so, yeah, I think 100% it's continuously doing the work day in and day out. I think motivation comes and go, but it's the grit and your discipline that actually moves that needle forward and gains you that momentum. Outside of just doing the work, I think so many people try to use ChatGPT and so many people try to be this corporate person where quite frankly, I like to shoot the shit with people. When I'm reaching out to brokers, I'm like, "So do you play pickleball?" And just try to find something in common with them so they know that I'm a human and I know that they're a human. And it's crazy how much more relationships develop when you actually act like a human and not try to be this perfect robot, but this person that shows your personality and is even vulnerable with people, because then people are more likely going to be vulnerable with you and be a human back to you.
Okay, so you created the perfect segue into something that I was already going to ask you about, but you teed it up for me.
You're welcome.
Being vulnerable, right? So you were. I appreciate how open you've already been, sharing what you went through in December and how even after you had found this success and kind of achieved this enormous milestone of buying a business, forming these partnerships, building all this momentum, all this excitement, then you got into the day-to-day of it. And I'm sure, like you said, there are difficult conversations, a lot of challenges, and then just kind of grappling with the new reality. You were still working, if memory serves.
Mhm.
And so you had a lot going on at the same time. You had what you were already doing, and then you had all this additional set of responsibilities, and how to settle into that. And obviously that must have taken a toll mentally. And we talked earlier about how you had a really strong why behind your original day job
Mhm.
through the experience with your dad. But maybe, and I'm just observing or question here, is like when you got into this business, you said you felt like you were chasing money. Was it because there wasn't as strong of a why behind it, or do you have any kind of idea of like what about that experience kind of led you towards how you felt?
Yeah, I mean, I think joining Action Academy, my goal was to always continue to build my cash flow to then invest in real estate so I could, quote, retire early. And I think as I've been exploring that and continuously asking myself that, I don't think that's true. And I don't think that's true in the sense of, I think all humans are put on this earth for purpose, right? I think the days that we're productive, we feel a lot better about ourselves, about, we're happier, we're more energetic than the days that we're, laying on the couch and scrolling Instagram for, 12 hours or TikTok and, whatever. Now, I'm not saying I don't do that. I love those random days, but, I think my end goal wanting to be build up cash flow so I could retire early just isn't realistic anymore because I've realized I actually genuinely enjoy working and I enjoy working towards something that I'm passionate about. And, taking a step back, am I passionate about home inspections? No. But am I passionate about helping people? And this way I get to help people because my inspectors that we have are truly some of the best inspectors in the state of Tennessee and the USA. I get to help people feel secure about their most important, largest decision of their life. Like I called one of our customers or clients that we did a home inspection with on Monday. I called them this morning and I was like, hey, I know you were worried about spending $600 on this inspection, even though it's a new build. Like, how'd you feel? And she was like, Carly, I never thought I would say I was very happy with spending $600, but your team, your inspector made me feel right at home, made me feel so comfortable buying this purchase. Like, we're so excited to move in now, things like that. So it's once again pivoting that why of, hey, I'm not selling medical equipment anymore, but I am still helping people. But I think when I first bought the home inspection business, to your point, Aaron, I don't think I was looking at it like that. I was looking at it like, wow, I could make a lot of money doing this. And I don't think I ran the business as I wanted to for that reason. I think I got lazy and complacent for a lot of those reasons because I didn't have that purpose and I didn't have that why. And that really hurt me mentally, and that, quite frankly, also really hurt the business. So Alex and I had to have some hard talks about what we wanted out of it, and Alex at some point was like, "I thought this was gonna be a passive thing." And so that was one of the hard conversations of, yeah, we gotta roll up our sleeves and effing grind right now to get this business where we want it to go, and right now it's not passive, but in 3 to 5 years, if we do what we say we're going to do, heck yeah, it's going to be, and our lives are gonna be very, very different. And so it's trying to get used to that delayed gratification and everything like that too. But yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting too because the acquisition is such a tedious process. It can
Mhm.
be, it's long, it's intense. You're doing it while you're working and you feel like you've won the game when you do acquire the business. But then I think based on what you just said, it's like you basically had to recalibrate your vision for how you fit into that business as an owner and what
Yep.
that looks like over a long period of time. Whereas you're probably really focused on the acquisition and just getting to the finish line before that to where you maybe didn't have as much space and time to process what that might look like. So it sounds like a pretty normal part of the process
Yeah.
of acquiring an existing business
Mhm.
and settling into it, especially with a business partner, because you got a lot of stuff to figure out,
Yeah.
and you definitely don't have a lot of time to do that, right? You're working, you got other stuff going on in life, so there's always a balance between how much can I prepare before I've prepared too much,
Mhm.
and also like, am I taking action too quickly? It's
Yep.
really hard to hit the sweet spot on that spectrum. You've
Yep.
already said many times and given many examples, you have a strong bias for action. Heck, we're in a group called Action Academy, and we both are like, active contributors in that
Yeah.
group. So it's kind of built into our DNA. But
Mhm.
that bias for action can sometimes make you feel like you got somewhere too soon. And
Mhm.
so I think a lot of what you've described you're going through is just some of that catching up and processing it. But
Yeah.
I've been just so impressed with how you've not only been able to share that with people, and I think you said a few minutes ago, like vulnerability and just allowing yourself to be vulnerable with people also strengthens your relationships. And you learn that other people are feeling the same way and maybe they haven't said it too. And so it's almost a form of leadership when you can bring those conversations to light and create a more realistic picture of what it's like to own a business because there is a lot of fodder on the internet about go buy a small business, it'll replace your income and you can just chill, you'll work 4 hours a week and that's it. And that's just like, I mean, that's the unicorn scenario. That's not the common. And I appreciate you telling the real story behind that.
Yeah, of course. And to your point, I think I have screwed myself over a couple of times by taking action too quickly, whatever it is in life. But I think it really has buying this business slash surrounding myself with people in Action Academy slash mentors of mine like Ben and Michaela, how they take a step back, or surrounding myself with those people that don't take action as quickly as me. It used to piss me off, but now I understand it. And now I look to gain advice from those people. What am I missing? Like, how would you look at this? So I don't make those mistakes again and I don't hurt myself in that capacity. And you made a really interesting point. Buying a business, you feel like that gets you to the finish line. I would say that actually gets you to the starting line. It's like you close on a business and you're like, oh crap, now I own a business and I've borrowed X amount of millions or hundreds of thousands of dollars from the bank or from my family and friends or from other investors. And that's where the real pressure starts, quite frankly. And yeah, I mean, it is hard. And I think being vulnerable, to our point earlier of this overarching is why and me wanting to help people, I think me being vulnerable, I have seen is a very good way of me helping a lot of other people. I did a podcast with Brian for Action Academy and it was very well received. And a lot of people said, hey, I'm joining Action Academy because of you, or hey, I want to buy a business and I want to hear more about your story and things like that. And it's a really weird feeling for someone to reach out and say that to me. I think one, because I don't feel like I'm any better than them. I feel just as lost as I did before I bought this business, and I'm still the same person. I still have anxiety. I still struggle with a lot of things, whether it be mentally or in my life. And the fact that people are now quote unquote looking up to me, I think is a huge badge of honor, but also terrifying, right? And so I think the least that I can do for them is tell people my honest experience and tell people that I have truly struggled both on how to run a business properly and mentally and in all facets of my life, because that is life. I'm not some guru that was telling you that, yeah, join whatever, buy a business and life will be great. I do think that's possible, but that's because of the hard work and the discipline that you have from those groups and the lessons you've learned from the people around you, not just buying a business and hiring an operator.
Yeah, absolutely. It's never as easy as it sounds. And also life isn't linear. I mean, you're proof of that. I have a similar story. Like I moved around a bunch, like a lot of circumstances have changed that are not directly related to my business goals, right?
Yes.
Sometimes I've moved for reasons that are completely unrelated to my career. And those things also drive, the arc of your life. And if you try and pretend like your life can be modeled out as a 10-year forecast on a spreadsheet, you probably have some rude surprises awaiting you because life never plays out in that manner. And I think we have to embrace that, not deny it,
Yep.
which leads to your current chapter. And you talked about you reached the starting line,
Mhm.
not the finish line.
Mhm.
Well, real estate's a great example of that. You are now an operations manager for Legacy Investment Group, which is run by some incredible people and very, very detail-oriented, incredible operators, probably the best, operational minds that I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. And so I'm sure
Mhm.
that they instill that same level of detail orientation and just quality in you. And I know there's one other operations manager, Mike. So maybe you can talk about like we used the word passive earlier. I'm very reluctant to use the P word, but I feel like you can maybe give some better concrete examples of what it actually means to be an operator in a real estate business.
Yeah, I mean, I've been getting into the office at 7:30 every day and probably leaving after 5, and so, um, it's a huge learning curve and, something that I don't take lightly. To your point, I am surrounded by, 3 or 4 of the smartest minds that I've ever met and also people that I genuinely care about. So I, 1, don't wanna let them down, but 2, it has been so cool to just be a sponge and absorb everything, right? Like, Ben is a phenomenal operator, but also a phenomenal business owner. So I get to learn about real estate, but I also get to learn how to run my own home inspection business too from Ben based off of what he does. And to my point earlier of one of my core values is surrounding myself with the right people. as great of business minds that Ben and Michaela and Mike and everybody is, they're even better people. Like, as great of a coach as Michaela is, she's a better friend to me. As great as a business owner Ben is, he makes sure that Mike and I come first and that we're okay before we do work and things like that. And so, one, I'm really happy to be learning all of that. But two, I mean, Mike was out of town last week. One of our apartment buildings caught on fire. We had 3 move-ins, and so I'm in a boot because I have a stress fracture in my foot. And so I'm showing up in the office at 7, then I'm driving around town, letting cleaners in, helping move furniture out of a townhome that was furnished. The next renters don't want furnished. I'm showing other apartments to try to fill those vacancies. I'm moving out people in storage. I'm having to turn around on my way to the airport to a bachelorette trip to come and let someone into our apartments, and I'm the last person on our flight because I cut it that close. So it's it's not passive at all. But once again, I think we're working for that delayed gratification of, hey, we know what we are building is special. It's called Legacy Investment Group, and the reason I took this job is because I believe in Ben and Ben's business partner and where they want to go and what legacy they want to leave behind. And so that was a huge thing that attracted me towards legacy. And so it's been really cool and I've learned so much. And I think I'm in a very, very, very spoiled, lucky position where a lot of people pay Ben to mentor him, and I actually kind of get to be paid to be mentored by him. So I feel like I really have one of the luckiest jobs in the world to be able to do that.
Well, you did just say you're at the office 9.5 hours a day, so I think he's getting the squeeze out of what he's paying you as well. But
Yeah, and did you hear that?
I totally agree, and I think it's what's really interesting, and one of the things I've appreciated about getting to know Ben and Michaela in particular is there is no detail that is too small for them to pay attention to. There's nothing they gloss over, and obviously that you guys are the ones probably actually now doing those red lines and paying attention with the microscope on everything. But that's honestly what it takes to be
Mhm.
an extraordinary operator. And these are not small deals, right? A lot of people, there's a lot of investor capital that's invested with legacy, and you get to be part of the delivery of the fulfillment of that service. And as I am now entering my first syndication and collecting investor capital, I'm grateful to have role models like the ones that you now work for, because I see what it takes to be extraordinary. And I've seen plenty of people that are mediocre. And unfortunately, I've seen some operators that are essentially fabricating what they're putting out there. And I know how I want to be. I want to operate with integrity. I want to be in command of all the details. And I also want to be a good messenger. That's the other thing, is like, how can you set people's expectations? So the building catches on fire. I know a little more about that story than most do, but like, you have to, the fact that it caught on fire is one thing, but then there's all of the residual things that happen after that. You got to make sure everyone's safe. You might have to relocate people for a couple nights. You got to actually remediate the issue,
Mhm.
all the way to resolution, get people back into their day-to-day lives and make sure that you're back to business. You got to file insurance claims. You got to do whatever you got to do. And I just
Yeah.
think that as mundane and boring as that sounds to a lot of people, for those who want to be extraordinary operators, those types of experiences are what are going to get you there. It's what's going to make you, rise and evolve on your own. So that if you ever want to do your own deals, or if you just want to continue to evolve at that company, like, you're going
Mhm.
to be so well positioned. You already are, but I can only imagine over the next 2-3 years what you're going to learn sitting in that seat there.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, yeah, with the fire situation last week, it was really cool to see Legacy truly work as like a full team for the first time. And, obviously we always have meetings and we do teamwork and, things like that. But Ben was boots on the ground talking with the fire department. Mike was reaching out to insurance. Mike was reaching out to Red Cross to see how we could pay for these tenants to stay the night at a hotel. I was calling all of the tenants, making sure that they were okay and making sure that if they didn't have a place to stay, that I was informing them of the updates and things like that. Kind of to your point about partnerships. If you accept a job or you decide to work for certain people, don't take that lightly either, because I now have to go into the office for the first time of my corporate career. I wouldn't really call this job corporate, but I have to go into an office for the first time of my W-2 working life. And people are like, oh my God, how is that? It is tiring. Going into an office every day, having to straighten my hair and put on mascara every day isn't great. But I get to surround myself with two good friends of mine. And I look forward to going to work because I know I get to learn and I'm excited about it, you know? So putting myself in those kind of situations too, I think has been really helpful.
Yeah, like I said at the beginning, it's extraordinary to see how you've allowed yourself to evolve. And some of the, obviously, it's not as easy as it sounds. There's a lot of choppy waters along the way, but it seems like you've landed in a place with enormous upside and
Hmm.
you are able to bring a unique perspective and contribute your own special sauce. So you're learning from people that you respect, but you're also bringing a perspective that
Yeah,
can add value to the team. And that's in my mind, all you can really ask for in an employer and working relationship. So that's really
for
cool.
sure. Yeah.
So, last topic,
Okay.
super, super important.
Oh God.
Tell
Pickleball.
us about pickleball. Yeah.
Ah, yes, I knew it. Hold on, let me pull out my necklace. Yes. Yeah, no, it's funny. Pickleball was something that started when COVID started, and being a D3 athlete, I went to college in Milwaukee, and the best thing to do in Milwaukee is to eat cheese curds and drink spotted cow, which is a beer. And, after college, honestly, I gained a lot of weight. Even end of college, I gained a lot of weight by doing that, and I hadn't really found like workouts that had stuck. And I found pickleball, and through pickleball, I made an amazing community. I made 30 to 50 friends from playing pickleball, and I think all of my close friends appreciated the fact that I played pickleball because I got to get my competitiveness out of my system by doing a sport rather than by being competitive with all of my friends all of the time. And yeah, I mean, kind of to my point earlier, if I do something, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability and I'm going to want to be the best at it. And so I trained, I played a lot, and it's just turned into something that is a great mental escape for me, great for me physically, and has led to some really cool opportunities. I've gone to nationals, I've gone to the US Open and won my division. Put yourself in really hard situations and work towards those goals and then achieve those goals, because I think once you do it in any facet of life, it proves to your brain and to yourself that you can do it in everything. So it's, how do I take the teamwork and the success and the grit and discipline from pickleball and bring it to my business? And, that's kind of funny, but I mean, it's also true. So, it's also me training for a marathon. I couldn't run more than 3 miles back in October. And then by early April, I was running 20 miles. It's a good analogy of, yeah, it seems kind of funny at first, but if you put the time, energy, and effort in it, it shows you endless possibilities.
I love that answer. And I also think it's just important for people to have different outlets,
Mhm.
especially like you're in a really intense phase of working, you're running a business remotely, and you're working full time, very full time at your current employer. If that's all you did and you didn't have these outlets for physical activity, competitiveness, and kind of going in and having these experiences, I do feel like it might be even harder to stay sane. So I love that you have that. I love that, like you said, you've been a competitor for a long time. You played in college, soccer, and you've found different ways to exercise that part of your personality and the
Yeah.
desire that you have to
Mhm.
continue to grow and compete. The competitive nature is something a lot of entrepreneurs have. And yes, you can use it at the workplace, but it's just nice to have another outlet that I'm sure refills your cup, especially when you start to feel empty or burned out.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, you are 100% right, because as I have a stress fracture in my foot right now, I can't play pickleball or really like exercise as much, and I am going insane.
What do
So,
they say? Movement is medicine, right?
yes, exactly.
Yeah. Well, Carly, I love this. So much good stuff for anybody who's considering buying a business, getting into real estate, or just, navigating the choppy waters of what it takes to evolve in their lives. But I really appreciate you being so open and honest about everything. I appreciate our friendship, and I'm glad we got to do this. And hopefully we'll get to do it again in the future.
Yeah, this is awesome, Aaron. I really appreciate you having me on. And yeah, if there's anything I can ever do, let me know.
Where can people find you if they want to stay in touch?
Yeah, Instagram, Facebook, all of the above. It's at Carley Mitus, CarleyMitus. And if you need a home inspection, reach out at Insight Home Inspection Services or inspectedbyinsight.com. Yeah.
Boom. We'll drop it in the show notes. Thanks again, Carley. We'll catch you next time.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for making it to the end of today's episode. As you may know, podcasts are very difficult to grow organically. If you're getting value from today's episode, I'd deeply appreciate if you can take 30 seconds to leave my show a 5-star rating and review. This will go a long way to help me reach more listeners just like you. Thank you so much in advance.